Hey, Zach, how are you? I'd like to welcome you to Quantum Messages. Thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Annie. I'm doing well.
Yeah, thanks. So I found out about beet cancer when I was interested in becoming a holistic cancer coach. And it seems like your organization is the only program that I was personally was able to find that had the title holistic to it. And it really aligned with the philosophy of, the way that I healed myself from cancer. And I just, I really connected with the philosophy that the program was embodying. And I actually didn't realize like how many resources it had, or how like, even like how or the resources that, family and friends that are trying to help their family members try and heal from cancer from. So I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the history of beet cancer and its inception and who Susan Silberstein is.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a story of all too relatable tragedy, unfortunately. As the story goes back almost or a little over 50 years ago, our founder, Susan Silberstein, she wasn't necessarily even in the health or holistic health and wellness space as a profession or even as an area of interest. She was a PhD in linguistics and a career woman, etc., but also a loving wife. And Susan's husband, unfortunately, came down with a case of cancer. Susan's husband, not knowing any different, not knowing any better, not knowing any alternatives, he ended up going to conventional treatment centers, receiving conventional treatments, chemo, radiation, etc. And Susan got to watch what this does to a person. She got to watch her husband kind of decline very sharply. She got to watch his overall quality of life, his overall, mental and physical health, his overall will to live overall, just sharply and drastically decline. Now, as this was going on, she thought to herself, wow, there has to be a better way. This can't be it. This can't be the only thing to do. And so back then, there was no internet. This was, 50-ish years ago. So she did what she could. She started going to research libraries and opening up studies. She started reading books. She started calling up doctors and researchers and just doing anything she could to dig up a better, more holistic and natural way to approaching the body and approaching cancer and approaching healing. And the more that she started to look into these kind of things, the more she got excited, the more she said, wow, this is real, this is powerful, and this was the way for her. And well, unfortunately, because the rate of education was very slow in those days, it takes a while. You gotta drive somewhere, open up a book, and it's and this was her first introduction to the material. It unfortunately wasn't fast enough to assist her husband. And her husband ended up passing exactly when the doctor's prognosis said he was going to. Now that brings up a very fascinating philosophical question because are doctors that good? Do they just have these magical crystal balls that can calculate someone's exact time of death and day of death? Or do they say these things? Do they plant these seeds of thoughts into someone's mind? And does that play a massive role in their own body following suit and shutting down around that time when they lose hope? But that's, essentially that's where we've come from. The tragedy of losing a husband and losing a spouse and losing someone that you love to cancer and knowing it didn't have to be that way. And
Mhm.
so it was from that tragedy, from that, distraughtness that she formed her mission of not allowing that to happen to other families, to other patients themselves, or to other families of patients. And so she formed the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education. That's our formal name. It's a nonprofit organization and always has been with the mission to educate people on holistic cancer healing and prevention. And she did that through a variety of different things, anything that she could back then. She would she would write books herself. She would go to research conventions and present things. She would just train patients one-on-one, family members of patients one-on-one. She would help educate medical professionals who had a gap in holistic health in their allopathic medical education. And she would actually just train people to then kind of copy herself and go off and start educating people themselves. And she used to do all that in person because it was way before the internet. So that's where we come from.
Yeah, well, it's a great story, and I really connected with her story when I was in the holistic cancer coaching certificate program, and her what she was teaching really aligned with my philosophy as well of how to heal cancer and just my own personal experience with it. And I just really connected with her, and I was happy while I was learning because I was getting confirmation once again that the path that I was taking and the path that I chose really can work. And so that was really powerful for me personally. And so I know other people, I would love other people to be able to experience that as well. So how did you get involved with beet cancer?
Well, I've been someone that's been largely interested in matters of holistic health and wellness in general for probably the better part of a decade. I've always been someone that, from a young age, had a healthy mistrust and distrust of mainstream institutions, anything from the educational system to the pharmacological medical system, etc. And I was never really in it as a profession. I went to school to be a clinical psychologist, a clinical counselor. When I realized I disagreed with that institution as well, I kind of went different entrepreneurial pathways and did a couple different things. But essentially, I was at a time in my life where I was looking for my next work endeavor to, take on. And through networking, I happened to meet Carl Wagner. And I met Carl at this event. He introduced himself and he said, "Hello. Who are you? What do you do? Oh, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Oh, I work with a holistic cancer education nonprofit." And immediately I said, "Oh, cool. So do you talk about this and this and this and named off, a couple approaches to cancer, or do you go this way and talk about these things and these things?" And he looks at me and he's like, "Who are you? Why do you know this?" And so we just kind of jived from there. We had a good time throughout the evening at this event, and we followed up afterwards, and turned out he didn't just work with the organization, he was the CEO of the organization. And turned out he was looking for someone to partner up with and really help him grow the organization and continue the mission. And I was looking for the next endeavor to take on. And so it was a match.
Yeah, that's awesome. It morphed into this. And so Susan, did she retired? How many years ago did she retire from teaching?
It was before my time here, at least, so I'm not quite sure. I don't quite recall how many years, but he has been the CEO for 10 years now, or some like 10 or 11 years now.
So it's been a while. So
Yeah,
yeah, what resources does beet cancer have to offer the general public?
yeah. Well, we have a variety of resources. We really try to cater to anyone where they're at in their philosophy, in their cancer journey, or even if they're just wanting to learn. So one of our flagship programs is that we have an in-house naturopathic licensed physician with whom we offer counseling with for absolutely free. So anyone in the world, the English-speaking world currently only, can call and get in touch with our counselor, and she will do a consultation, develop a plan, and see it through with someone with, follow-up and follow-up calls over time as appropriate in order to help someone get through their cancer experience.
Mhm.
We also have free weekly calls. These are a wonderful, wonderful introduction to our community.
Mhm.
Absolutely no commitment necessary. Anyone can just pop onto our Zoom. Currently, they are 7 p.m. on 7 p.m. Eastern time and on Thursdays. And this is just like an open forum chat, open forum Q&A. Someone can pitch questions, pitch topics of discussion. We can't give explicit medical advice on these, but we can talk about scenarios from an educational and pointing towards resources perspective.
Mhm.
And this is a wonderful way to receive community support and know that you're not alone and know that, you don't have to be alone in the abundance of information that there is online or otherwise. Um, so yeah, I'm on there, Carl's on there, some of our cancer coaches are on there, whoever can make it out. And we invite and welcome anyone to come on, whether you want to be on cam or not, totally fine. Whether you want to ask questions or just listen in, totally fine. It's a super fun community program and one that we're very excited about. But other than that, we have education out there on the internet as much as we can in many different ways as we can. Social media has some wonderful snippets and clips. That we have a wonderful social media team making reels and posting them everywhere from TikTok to Twitter. Um, we have, of course, blogs,
Mhm.
dozens and dozens of pages of blog entries and articles, all with fantastic, more specific, bits of information. We have books and ebooks, and I think we still sell some DVDs even, although a bit antiquated.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have our educational courses that we sell. We
Mhm.
sell a few educational courses in order to fund the rest of the free programs in order to be self-sufficient. So those programs are tailored for anybody, whether you are a patient, a caregiver, a family member, a medical professional that just wants to learn more about cancer, and holistic cancer approaches, or even a holistic healer in some capacity already that wants to kind of get some specialized information on cancer. And then we'll also, through that program, continue Susan's legacy of training, certifying, and then offering ongoing resources and support to anyone who would like to become a holistic cancer coach.
Mhm. So, how important do you feel having for a cancer patient having a cancer coach, holistic cancer coach is?
Well, it's of course going to be the answer is obviously going to be dependent on who that particular person is, but I'll talk about the benefits, right? I'm not here to say everyone has to get one, but I'll talk about the benefits. Cancer is a very lonely experience, and I think life is a very lonely experience for a lot of people, and especially when you add on something like a cancer, infliction. It's very isolating in a lot of different ways and for a lot of different reasons. A lot of people, they feel disconnected even from their closest support structure and loved ones when they get a cancer diagnosis because a few different reasons. Sometimes they don't want to stress out their family members. Sometimes they don't want to hear what their family members are going to have to say. They might not know really much of anything on the subject, but of course, like they're going to give an opinion and give an opinion because they want to help, but they just add more chaos to the person's head that's going on. Unfortunately, you can't necessarily look out for your oncologist or doctor to be completely acting in your favor, or know the optimal way to treat the body, especially if you are holistic and natural minded. So it's where do you turn, right? You're just here alone as a person with a ailment, and there's just an abundance of information all over the internet, and you just kind of it's easy to just feel lost and alone. And so having a cancer coach gets rid of all of those problems. You have someone that is educated on the materials, educated on the subject matter, and is there specifically to guide you through it, not necessarily with an emotional attachment that can make things complicated. Now,
Mhm.
saying that, of course, some of our cancer coaches are deeply empathic people that, do very much, care for their clients,
Mhm.
similar to even, loved ones. But it's just like a guide, it's the difference between like you've never hiked in a forest and
Right.
you just go in by yourself, or you could go in with someone who's been there, someone
Mhm.
who's been there hundreds of times even, and
Mhm.
someone who knows how to get people through the forest. It certainly can increase odds of success, and it can get information to you faster, more succinctly, and yeah, it's equal parts important, the emotional support, but also the procurement of information.
Mhm. So do you think, I mean, just to have like a generalized team, what do you think a well-rounded team would be for a cancer patient? Can or
Well, that depends, right? That depends. And to be clear, we at Beat Cancer and several of our coaches, if not, in fact, most of our coaches, will help people no matter where they're at. And what I mean by that is we'll assist people that are wanting to and willing to and desire to go entirely holistic and natural in their healing.
Mhm.
But if someone does wish to go to conventional treatment centers and receive conventional treatment, we'll also work with those people because it's the same kind of things that will support the body in healing in the first place, that will protect the body and support the body in not suffering the massive consequences of conventional treatment modalities. So yeah, I mean, obviously, if those two options I just gave, the support team is going to look a little different. In
Right.
the conventional avenue with the holistic cancer coach alongside, you're going to have your coach, you're going to have your oncologist, whatever, other team members come with that. Some oncologists and allopathic medical professionals are more or less accepting to the concept of a cancer coach.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, you don't really need much more than yourself and your coach if you
Mhm.
got a good coach, and we've got plenty.
Yeah. Yeah, why I'm just curious why you think so many people are getting cancer now.
Well, Eddie, that's a question that could get us in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Um, I,
Mhm.
I'll, I'll,
You could
I'll
be
say
general.
that. What's that?
You can be general or however way you want to answer.
Yeah, well, I'll just say that it's not random. I'll
Yeah.
say that it's not random. Nothing is random. Cancer is not a, disease that floats around the sky and then just gets someone like some boogeyman. It's also not some genetic destiny that you just automatically get if some of your family members get. It's just BS. It's just not true. And it's one of the biggest veils that's been pulled over on society, this overall concept of genetics rule your life, and not just in regards to cancer, but in regards to pretty much any matter of health.
Yeah.
Um, Actions have consequences.
Hmm.
That's just the natural order of things. And unfortunately, most people, whether conscious or unconscious,
Hmm.
are making some very poor choices,
Hmm.
very, very poor choices, and filling their bodies with poison in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
Physical poison through even just the air they're breathing, the body products they're putting on, the clothing they're wearing, the food they're eating naturally. That there's an abundance of physical toxins that get get inundated into the body on a day-to-day basis if you're not mindful of alleviating that. And even if you are mindful of alleviating that, they're still out there, right? I can't even go outside right now because there's a whole bunch of chemicals in the sky. But on the other side of things, there's the emotional toxins, the emotional poisons.
Hmm.
A lot of people aren't living well in the heart and in the soul. A lot
Hmm.
of people are really, really struggling with disturbances within them, deep within them, and they lack fulfillment and they lack healthy stress alleviation mechanisms. And the body can only take so much. We've been blessed with these bodies that are super resilient, beautifully designed, and they will take a lot of abuse and misuse, and they will protect us by when we introduce poisons on either of those sides by tucking them away
Hmm.
and tucking them away and keeping them from necessarily impacting us in the short term. But it can only take so much. That's why
Yeah.
you see people go and do all these things that aren't healthy, and they say, well, I'm fine. I do all this and I'm fine and I'm fine. And hopefully they will be fine forever, right? But the body can only take so much very often. And, when those toxin pockets, again, whether we're talking about energetic, emotional toxins or literal physical toxins, when they overwhelm an area to the point where it mutates enough cells in that area that it gets called cancer,
Hmm.
well, then you're going to realize that you've ignored the red flags and the red lights, and now the sirens and the alarm bells are ringing. And a lot of times it ends up being a much more difficult scenario to deal with rather than if you were to be addressing these things on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think there's pretty much everything is artificial in modern society,
Hmm.
and our bodies are still biological and natural. And so all these artificial things, whether it's just ways of living or existing or, what we put into our body, it's not compatible. It's
Yeah.
just not compatible. And the more we deviate from what is natural and what is good and what is true, the more sickness we're going to continue to see. And it's no surprise. I
Yeah.
don't think, people understand how our bodies are work, how they're designed to work. We're not designed to pack them up and inject things into them and eat a bunch of garbage. It's not
Yeah.
how that works. So
Yeah.
nothing's
That's a
random.
good answer. I'm just curious what do you feel how do you feel that more people are seeking out this holistic approach from
Yeah,
your
there's certainly a growing number of people. Not everyone will, and
hmm.
that's just the facts of the matter. Not everyone will ever kind of break out of the mental matrix that they've been trapped within in regards to health and wellness or otherwise. And that's just the truth of the matter. But through wonderful tools that are continuing to grow in abundance, such as your podcast, my podcast, Beat Cancer,
Yeah.
social medias, etc., um, we're able to get more information out there. And as we get the information out there, it'll resonate in the hearts and souls of those who are meant to receive it. And as the systems over continue to overplay their hand and get more and more ridiculous and do all these things that they think are funny,
Hmm.
more people are kind of starting to wake up and see that things aren't quite as they seem and aren't quite as they've led them to believe. So
Yeah.
I do think we will continue to see an increase.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see it around, but there still are a lot of people who don't have the information. And because there's so much information online, I went through that rabbit hole, like trying to find my path, trying to, decide what to sit, like which way to go. And it was overwhelming. And definitely when you first find out you have cancer, it's very overwhelming for someone. So I'm
Right.
really happy that you guys have all this information in one spot on the website, and you can find the information there, and that's really good.
Yeah, and we continue to try to make it be a larger compilation of good information. We're in very exciting times at Beat Cancer. With our very small staff and very limited resources, we are expanding the programs as quickly as we can. We're currently seeking to create new modules within the course itself
Mhm.
to accommodate just more perspectives and philosophies and other dietary mechanisms and other healing modalities and yeah, we have, I think, over time, hundreds, like at least 500 coaches out in the world doing what they're doing. And as we grow our team of holistic cancer coaches, even though they don't necessarily work for us and we'll never necessarily even know all of the wonderful things that all of them are doing out in the world, well, then we kind of continue to spread our web of team members and teammates doing what we're here to do in educating as many people as we can.
Yeah, no, that's great. What are some of your upcoming projects that you guys have lined up?
Well, there's always a whole lot, always a whole lot. Getting new course modules made is one of the most exciting ones. Of course, it's a very large task to keep them to the caliber that we expect in Beat Cancer. We are actually currently redoing all of the existing modules as well. Those wonderful social media guys I was mentioning earlier are going through each lesson and kind of just bringing the video into 2024. They're modernizing it, adding visuals, adding some really cool features to that. So that's exciting. We have a team of website guys redoing the website, so it'll be easier to navigate, easier to edit, easier to kind of keep that flowing and functioning as smoothly as possible. Um, there's always so much. Carl and I just this yesterday got back from a 4-day conference where for 12 to 15 hours a day, we were learning essentially business acceleration methods and tactics in order to just get this organization to perform as highly as it could. So we're always running around doing a whole lot of things. Those are some of the main projects. The new modules to the course, redoing the course itself, new website. Our social media team continues to crush it. We just had a video on Facebook hit 131,000 views.
Wow, that's
That was super
amazing.
cool. Yeah, so that's super exciting and I'm very happy with the work that they're doing and grateful for them. And yeah, we're just gonna keep pushing forward.
That's great. I mean, that's great. How can people get involved with Beat Cancer?
Well, the easiest way is just to go to beatcancer.org,
Mm-hmm.
beatcancer.org.
Mm-hmm.
And from there you can find anything that you'd like. There's tabs right at the top, whether you'd like to hop on our weekly calls and get info about that, whether you'd like to speak to our counselor, whether you'd like to take one of our educational courses. Um, yeah, that's the simplest way. Go right onto our website and find your way to what you are looking for.
That's awesome. Is there any final messages you'd like to give the audience and as we wrap up?
Final message, I just like to I just like to leave off with letting people know that we all have choices in this lifetime, and we can choose to be empowered or disempowered. And I certainly know which one I like to do. we can empower ourselves through education, and things become less scary, and things become more in our circle of control. And I think a lot of people are just getting blown around like a feather in the wind, unfortunately, of life. And they kind of just get blown here and blown there, and they feel like everything's random and that nothing matters and that they're not in the driver's seat of their own life. And, I've been there at times. I've been there at times. So I know what that feels like. And I know it's not a happy or fulfilling way to exist in this life. I know it's difficult to break out of that. But when you understand that we can take responsibility for everything that happens in our own life, as scary as a thought that is, we understand that we can switch to living empowered. And a lot of empowerment starts with education because you don't know what you don't know and you can't act on what you don't know. And that's one of our mottos here, empowerment through education. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to help people do. I really suggest people come to those weekly calls. We keep it real there. It's a great way to connect with some good people, talk about some real things. And that's a really long closing message, but I will leave it at that.
It's great. No, it sounds like you guys are doing amazing things, and I just want to thank you so much for all of the effort that you're putting in and trying to educate all of us, about cancer and other holistic modalities and empowering yourself. And thanks for taking the time today and sharing this information on the show.
Thank you very much, Annie.
Yeah, take care.